Hi, this is Dipen Mashru from DMTI SOFTPRO. DMTI SOFTPRO is a digital marketing training institute offering digital marketing courses in Mumbai and Thane since 2009. Today I have Mr. Siddharth Hegde from Ethinos Digital, a premier digital marketing agency in Mumbai and other cities of India. And I think best thing would be just let's ask Mr. Siddharth to talk about Ethinos Digital.
Sure. We are a Mumbai-based, Mumbai headquartered digital marketing firm, presence in Bangalore and Delhi as well. Our focus is, we are focused on the performance marketing piece, but using a layer of data. So the focus is on, leveraging data, technology, and to align ourselves with our clients' objectives rather than being very siloed in terms of our services approach. We've been active in this space for the last few years. I've seen significant growth. We've also seen significant evolution in terms of the maturity of our clients and the types of things we are seeing in terms of our clients ask us.
Right. Could you talk to us about some of the clients that you have on board, if that is okay?
Sure. We work with, our first client was Capgemini. We work with folks like Capgemini, Apollo, 24/7, AXA, Hotstar, CleanMax Solar, NASCOM, etc. We work with a mix of banking, financial services, technology, B2B, e-commerce, some travel, etc.
Yeah, I've seen the list of clients that you have, and they're very, very prestigious clients, one of the best companies in India. So that's great going. And Ethinos Digital is one of the digital marketing agencies which I follow a lot. And in fact, they release some amazing content. I have seen the content that they release. The graphics are incredible. I want to hire a graphic designer. He's absolutely, whoever's creating those presentations are absolutely amazing. I think one of the best I've seen in the industry.
Oh, thank you.
Right. So, if I ask you what was digital marketing, let's say a few years back, let's go back around 3 to 4 years, and what is digital marketing today? Could you expand on that?
Sure. I think the big change that I'm seeing is just this, that, there was a time a few years back when digital marketing was more a curiosity where, CMOs would do digital marketing as one of those things where, oh, I'm doing something new. Doing something new. The social media pages would often be handled by an intern. They would be doing a very, even because their budgets were very large, maybe the amounts might have seemed large, but as a percentage of the overall budget, it used to be a very, very small percentage. What's happening now is that's been a total change where for many businesses, digital is now their mainstay. They're also very clear that digital is the one part of marketing that is probably the most measurable. You're not relying on a small, like with TV, you rely on a small sample and then you extrapolate. Here, you are actually able to measure the entire this thing. What's the impact, be it in terms of brand lift, be it in terms of actual acquisition of customers, be it in terms of change in perception of, brand, etc. The other thing that we're seeing that's happening is that digital marketing is becoming more and more closely allied with technology. So a lot of dependence on technology. So we're seeing a lot of automation, we're seeing a lot of AI, we're seeing a lot more stuff in terms of dashboarding and reporting, etc. So from that perspective, I think digital marketing has evolved quite a bit. And I think the big thing for most people is that, there is that very quantifiable ROI when you work with digital. So I think that's one side of it. But the other side, like you mentioned, the design piece is that, some of the basics aren't changing. So, some of the whole things like storytelling, design, a clear narrative. So some of those things are remaining the same. So, some of the basics of a brand will not necessarily change. It's maybe there is a new mechanic of getting it out to the right people at the right time when they have a need rather than, being intrusive.
Right. Would it be safe to say today that companies which have high marketing budgets, I'm talking about marketing budgets going up, exceeding around 10 crores to let's say 100 crores and beyond that, would you safely say that most of these companies are spending more on digital marketing than on traditional marketing?
No, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I would say that, if you look at the marketing mix for these companies,
Mm-hmm.
firstly, it depends on what type of a company. Now, if the company is a very traditional company, say a cements company or this thing, they're doing a huge amount of dealer meets, other ATL, BTL,
Mm-hmm.
other things. So interestingly, I think there isn't a one size fits all. The answer would depend on which industry. On the other hand, if you were to talk about a digital first business or say, online gaming or any of those
Mm-hmm.
types of OTTs, all of the spend will be 95% on digital and, very little on the others
Mm-hmm.
industry.
Right.
But what you are seeing is that digital is the only space that is growing constantly, that continues to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I think depending on the industry, you will see that that number would vary.
Yeah, because generally, because what I also tell my students is normally if it's like a company which has a high demographic audience or target, they would like, it doesn't matter the person is 60-year-old or a 60-year-old, doesn't matter what gender he is, what location he comes from, what is his income status. Those kind of companies would rather will still will be very heavily reliant on traditional marketing because their customer base is such a huge audience. Would you support that view?
Well, yes and no. I mean, sorry, I'm not answering very directly, but for example, if you look at the Times of India, they've
Yeah.
got very demographic. It was a very traditional business, but
Mm.
now probably the fastest growing part of their business now, especially during lockdown, is likely to be the digital thing because in most places your news
Mm.
is not even being delivered.
Right. No, I'm basically specifically talking about FMCG companies like, if you have Coke or Lay's chips or those kind of very fast moving consumer good items.
Sure. I mean, I would say, I mean, digital is probably the fastest growing area, but they are probably doing. I think the other thing is the throughput for digital. I think a lot of these companies, it's what type they're spending a lot of money on creating some of that content. So with a,
Mm.
it could actually be also creating properties like a Coke studio. Um,
Yes. Yes.
one way of looking at digital is digital is like a pipeline to your customer. I mean, then it's a question of what you put through that pipeline that will have an impact on your brand. So you can't
Mm.
constantly bombard them with only brand messages. There are only so many times a Coke can tell me, oh, this is great, this is great, we are all about XYZ. I mean, beyond a certain point of time, I say I know what your brand is and I know what you stand for, and then I may have over the years have an opinion. So I think uh, creating some of this branded content like Coke does,
Mm.
Coke Studios, or Red Bull does with some of these types of activities that they sponsor, right from racing to some of these stunts
Right.
that Felix
Right.
Baum now 1 mile, space jump and those types of things. So I think it's
Mm.
some of it is about the type of content they are creating, that larger imagery they're driving
Mm.
to
Mm.
what they're doing. So some of the large spends will on some of these other pieces like creation of content will continue, because also what's happening is our people's clients are becoming more and more fragmented in terms of how they consume
Information. Yeah.
content. So you'll see, for example, there's large numbers of podcasts which have started to happen. For example,
Mm.
Spotify came into India last year, and you're seeing that there is a huge volume of people in India who finally started to consume podcasts. Podcasts have been around in India, been around globally for maybe 10 plus years, but
Right.
really seen a growth in India till the last couple of years. Now, all of a sudden, last year, this year, people who spend a lot of time commuting, people who spend a lot of time, in roles where they necessarily don't want to have a device out and viewing it, but are okay
Yeah.
being plugged in. So people, for example, in a city like Bombay, people who are traveling by train,
Right.
need to kind of listen to podcasts. So I think a large part of the spend will move to content creation as well.
Yeah, I was looking at the traffic scene recently. I also shifted over to traveling by train, which I find it so convenient because My centers are quite next to the train station, so I don't have to really commute from the train station to the office, which is, it may be very far from the station. And I normally just put on my podcast and listen to some podcasts, and that's the best way of passing time on the train and gaining some knowledge also.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So let's go a bit more deeper into digital marketing. Now, we all know that, yes, content is, I would say, the fourth pillar of digital marketing. We talk about the three pillars or the three main channels of digital marketing, which is search engine optimization, Google Ads, social media. So where you see the highest growth happening, where are people really focusing on? Again, yes, we talk in general, let's, as per the different industries, different types of companies, these mixes, this marketing mix might change. But overall, where do you see the highest growth happening? SEO, people spending a lot of time on SEO, social media, or really upscaling their Google Ads revenues and exposure to Google Ads?
So, even offline, I mean, the question you asked me, you said, which platform are we seeing more focus on? Is it more social? Is it more search? Is it more paid advertising, etc.? And I wanted to say, even when we started out with that type of a siloed approach where, there was an SEO team, there was a social media team, there was a paid advertising team, there was a content team, there was, design team, etc. What we've seen is that clients actually don't really care about, oh, I want to grow this area, I want to grow that area. What we've seen is that clients care about their business problems and the solutions to those business problems. So
right.
Growth is if you can help clients with, acquisition of new business, if you can help clients with retention of existing business, if you can help clients with, launching a new product, if you can help clients with building up their brand, if you can help them be a employer of choice. So what we actually are seeing increasingly is that, as clients evolve and they give you their business requirements, if you tell them that, oh, this part is kind of SEO and that is what you only signed on for SEO, then we're seeing clients aren't really buying that anymore. They are focused on help me solve my problems. And which is why, interestingly, one of the things we did at Ethinos is that we changed how we're structured. So we set up these units where each business unit actually is almost like a mini agency, where each business unit has a strategy team, each business unit has an SEO team, a social team, a paid advertising team, etc. So then, and this team is aligned around a single client. So when the client comes to them with a requirement, we are not getting into, oh, this is only paid or this is only SEO. We are attempting to solve the problem. So, if that problem is, how do I get 1 million downloads? Then it can't necessarily be, oh, all the money spent on paid only. The money spent on paid, it will be spent on social, it will be spent on organically optimizing in terms of the app store optimization. It will also spent maybe on some influence. So I think holistic solutions which are maybe focused around client business problems. So the long-term future, I think, is client business problems. So growth could be, for example, in helping clients with business acquisition, helping clients with upsell and retention, helping clients with, those types of things. That's where you'll see real growth rather than necessarily, focused on one of these. Obviously, if you look at things like SEO, social, and paid, of them, the significant largest component would probably end up being the paid piece, where, obviously in terms of huge amount of media spends are happening and that is growing. So I think from a revenue number, you're likely to see that the paid advertising part between a Facebook, Google, the other programmatic platforms is likely to be the largest in terms of revenue terms.
Right. Yeah, because as we say that, as we know that digital ad spends are rising exponentially, and but what you said was very right, a very correct thing to do, which is like basically create a customized solution for each individual client, and if you have a team assigned to that client, that really helps instead of one person handling 5 accounts of 5 different clients. And I think that would be a bit more not very convenient, not very well optimized to handle the client's needs and solutions.
Yeah, and it's not just about one person handling multiple accounts. It's also just aligning ourselves to the client's business problem. So if the client has a problem, the focus is let's use all those pieces of digital to help solve that problem, rather than saying, oh, you only signed up with us for SEO, you only signed up with us for social.
Exactly. Great. A very bad question to ask. I think we all are probably in the same boat. What's happening during lockdown? How is the business during lockdown?
See, I think safe to say, I mean, and this is not going to be news to anybody, but there are sectors like travel, hospitality, retail, all of these which are clearly significantly impacted. So there is that, right off the bat. I think also brands are being cautious in terms of, not doing large branding type activities. Being a little cautious in terms of that marketing is for a lot of them a discretionary spend, so they are being cautious in terms of what type of stuff they spend on, or they're deferring some of these decisions. But I think that seems to be the past now. The last couple of months there was a lot more uncertainty. People are starting to get a sense of, okay, business is continuing. We are able to work from home. I mean, this is not true of all businesses, like a travel, etc., is not included in this, but others, they are clear that, yes, work is happening. Maybe the pace at which it happens is slightly different. Maybe the process is slightly different, etc. But work's clearly happening. Requirements of clients for things like insurance, for entertainment, for basic necessities, for repairs, for electronic goods, some of those things are going to be there. So, how do you kind of service those requirements? So what we're seeing also is that, probably the teams are working slightly stretched hours where, clients will very often, you're not commuting. So clients will say, oh, let's get on a call at 9 o'clock. But usually it might have been at 10 o'clock earlier.
Right.
Also being a lot more understanding and flexible about some of this. But also on the other hand, I'm seeing the teams be a lot more responsive. So, people are on WhatsApp groups, people are on, things like a Microsoft Teams, and you will see requirements being put up and responsiveness being a lot higher. I think the other thing we're seeing is there are a lot of businesses which didn't really believe in digital in a big way are starting to kind of get on the bandwagon. So, we're seeing, for example, clients who were maybe just doing a social media, but were not necessarily doing their own business digitally. A lot of those types of companies, large cement firms, large steel manufacturers, companies which do, pumps, those types of businesses start to look at digital in a serious way because, currently, I mean, it's only businesses where you can, you don't need to go into their retail presence, you don't need to go into their dealerships and those types of. I think also in terms of existing, for example, guys like an automotive and others are actually experimenting with, how do you kind of deal with a situation where, your potential client doesn't necessarily want to come into your, dealership. So there are options where, the dealer could, for example, have a mobile truck where he actually takes the bike out for a, test drive. The entire thing could be done online, the booking, the sanitization happens in the truck, and then you should get this thing done. So I think people are experimenting with models. People are starting to think in terms of for the next 3 to 6 months, if, things are going to be a certain way, how do we kind of get on with things? I think that's starting to happen.
Yeah. So, would it be safe to say that overall, across all, overall, once lockdown lifts, we'll see a lot of industries, which, as you correctly said, which were not doing that much of promotion on the digital platforms, or not, they were not focusing much on the digital platforms. Yes, it was a part of their marketing strategies. They were doing it because it was necessary. Now they'll be really more focused on the digital side of the business.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think we are going to see a lot more of that happen now, and brands which were not necessarily as active digitally, didn't necessarily believe in digital as actively, are going to now kind of believe and trust and focus on digital in a much bigger way.
Yeah, because I mean, personally, what I would say that if there are certain things which I normally would go out to the shops or to the boutiques and buy, if I feel that this can be bought online, then just let's do it online. Why take a risk of going out? Let's reduce the risk of getting the infection or going out, reduce my, I mean, it's like basically I put it as the unnecessary trips that I make. I rather just order it online and have it delivered at my doorstep.
No, I agree. I mean, I think total this thing. So I think it's more about convenience than anything else right now. I mean, if you can, bypass that whole thing of going to somebody's premises, and if it can be conveniently delivered to you at home, then absolutely.
Great. So, would you like? Just recently, I was speaking to some of my students who are working for some digital marketing agencies. They normally do get in touch with me once in 3 to 4 months just to stay in touch and discuss everything about digital. They have some e-commerce clients that they're working with, and luckily what happened was they managed to get some of the e-commerce clients online in this, and we actually had a big meeting. Unfortunately, cannot disclose the name of those clients. So what they were saying is that we are really preparing to go all out. We are ramping our websites. We are introducing new products online. We are offering huge discounts to get the business running. We're trying to spend a huge amount on digital marketing and digital ad spend, because post lockdown we're going to see a huge increase in business. Again, your views on that?
So I agree with you. I mean, just a simple this thing. For example, in China, for example, there was this whole thing where post lockdown partially opening. There was, a couple of luxury stores that opened, and they saw some of their highest, worldwide highest sales per day happen in luxury stores that opened. So I think.
Oh yes, I heard about that. Yeah, I read in the news regarding that. Yeah.
So I think people are looking for the lockdown to end. I think, so I think from that perspective, there is likely to be a lot of pent up demand. We are likely to see for a lot of sectors there will be a huge rebound, but some sectors may not. So travel, for example, people are going to defer it. People are going to get on video calls. They're going to do those types of things rather than this thing. So I think we're seeing brands prepare themselves for whatever the post lockout or post lockdown world will look like for their respective sectors. So for example, it could be whenever things open up, focusing on hygiene, focusing on safety. For somebody else, it could be business as usual. For some companies like OTTs, online gaming, others, this has been a bonanza where growth has been significantly larger than it would normally be. So I think there is that. There's also something interesting. There was an interesting thought I had where there's something called the lipstick effect, where typically post a lot of post, for example, things like a 9/11 or the 2008-9 financial market crash, etc. What it is that people want to actually, for example, brands saw that there was a uptick in the sales of luxury lipsticks. For example.
Oh wow! Okay.
Interestingly, it was luxury, not entry-level lipsticks, where people felt that they want to treat themselves, but they want to be also cautious with their spending. So it was a luxury item, but a small value luxury item as of this thing. There isn't going to be a lipstick effect this time, unfortunately, because you're going to be covered with masks. So it may be an eyewear effect or something of that sort, or people indulging themselves with a nice set of earphones or those types of things.
Right. You might see some luxury masks coming out.
So I think luxury masks, you're going to basically see people. There is a lot of pent up demand. People like the whole idea of retail therapy. So you are going to see people go out and do shopping. I think brands should be prepared for some of that upswing. There are people who've been very cautious with some of their spending or have different some of their purchase decisions. So some of that pent up demand is going to kind of come out. So I think brands need to be ready to kind of cater to that, think in terms of deliveries, how will they execute, some of those other things. So it's a mix of, I think, marketing plus their business models rather than just marketing in isolation. Because what you want to do is, have lots of sales and not be able to deliver on those.
Right. That also is because we don't know whether the manufacturing units are going to be up and running and at full capacity. So that's, if the demand comes in, whether we will do whether they will be able to satisfy the demand and all that. I think that is something which is a very balancing act that these people need to perform, and make sure that if the demand comes in, they make sure that the manufacturing units are supplying those products and the supply chain is in place, and people can buy what they want to buy eventually.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
you have been actually, I also know a bit about this, but you also and all other agencies also are focusing a lot on what we call as programmatic advertising. So for the person who doesn't know what exactly that is, could you give us a brief idea on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me maybe give you, instead of getting into specific this thing, let me give you an example. Uh,
Okay.
so for a brand, very traditionally, what would happen is
Hmm.
they make it digitally that okay, let's do a thing where everybody who visits the Times of India homepage will see
Hmm.
a certain banner. Now, from that brand's perspective, let's assume
Hmm.
the brand is a automotive insurance brand.
Hmm.
What you could do in programmatic is that rather than showing that ad to every single person who visits the
Hmm.
Times of India homepage, and half of them are likely to be people who don't have cars, don't have bikes, are not in the
Hmm.
market for an insurance product. Uh,
Hmm.
you could do a simple thing where the ad is only shown to a very specific audience. That audience is
Hmm.
people who have four-wheelers and two-wheelers. And maybe what you could do is then you could further segregate that people who have basically have cars and this thing who are up for renewal, meaning their policies are lapsing in the next 3 months. So,
Hmm.
who've been searching for these types of things. So rather than, spending money very inefficiently across the entire gamut of everybody who's visiting a certain website, the Times of India website, what you're doing
Hmm.
is you're going after a certain audience where you're very clear you want somebody who is in market for a certain type of offering and already
Hmm.
has a certain type of product. So that type of slicing and dicing
Hmm.
real time happening where you can actually see the cost of that and you can bid rather than dealing with each publisher separately. You're actually going after and buying an audience. So that, to my mind, would be a simplistic way of looking at programmatic.
Hmm. So basically, what I explained to my students in a very simple manner about this, and I would like you to either correct me on this or you can improve my explanation on this, is that let's say today I suddenly have a big start developing interest in let's say Chinese cooking, and I'm looking at Chinese cooking recipes online and watching YouTube videos how to cook some Chinese dishes. And also, as per my online presence, what happens is that, for example, on Saturday or afternoon, normally after work, which is a half day, me and my colleagues normally go out and try out restaurants, go out to new restaurants, or just meet at the restaurant which is the nearest to the location of my office. So let's say at Saturday 11 a.m. onwards, for example, I suddenly am on my mobile or on my desktop or laptop, and I suddenly start seeing ads of Chinese restaurants near me, because what they have found out is that because I'm interested in Chinese cooking and I'm researching Chinese recipes, and I normally do usually go to a restaurant post on Saturday afternoon. They would start shooting off Chinese restaurant ads with me. So this is basically what Chinese restaurants would do to me. Would that be a good explanation of what programmatic advertising does and what do you call a predictive
It's one
analytics?
of the types of things that programmatic does, that somebody who is in market for a certain type of offering in a certain location
Yeah.
in even a certain type of price band, you start showing. So maybe you guys are looking at a nice sit down place rather than a fast food or a home delivery place. So then it kind
Yes.
of does too and gives you that specific thing. So it's, yeah, like you said, it's programmatic is about going after a specific audience.
Hmm.
Looking at from a brand's perspective, I mean, the type of advantages you get are a hugely added degree of control. So, you
Right.
have a lot of control. You have a huge amount of transparency in terms of, I mean, think in terms of compare this with the type of stuff that would happen for say for, from a TV or a print perspective, there's no way you can target somebody as specific as that. Also,
Exactly.
when you do something like this, the beauty of all of this is that you're getting real-time measurement. So it's, it's like, oh, we did this and the campaign bombed after 6 months and, we are the thing. You will actually get real-time measurement, so you can make corrective action. You can take corrective action during the day, by the hour, by the day, by the week, also your money is going a lot further. So if you look at the Times of India example I talked about, if if you're going after a specific audience, then of the 100 people visiting your website, if only 20 of them are automobile owners, then you're only advertising to those guys who are automobile owners rather than to the entire 100 who come.
Exactly.
Also, I think there are a lot of lot more interesting examples of targeting capabilities. So if a brand wants to ramp up its presence in a certain geography, if it wants to ramp up its presence in a certain demographic, all those types of things, as well as, what this allows companies to do is, rather than dealing with publisher by publisher by publisher, you're able to significantly increase the audience reach because you're going after a specific type of audience, so those in my mind are the reasons why brands want to be on programmatic. And what we're seeing is, like in a market like the US, above 80% of all digital marketing spend has moved to programmatic. So you
really? Okay.
So you are going to see something like that happen in the Indian market as well, where increasing part of the spend, because of the transparency, control, ability to measure real time, how efficient it is, better targeting capabilities, because of all the things, you are going to see this happen in India as well.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. And yes, finally, the most important part is now, as I think we generally agree that digital marketing is something which even post-lockdown may actually see an uptick, because might see a huge demand also for digital marketing agencies and digital marketing professionals, because we are going to see overall and maybe increase in the jump of digital marketing ad spend, and people, companies reaching out to promoting the products on the digital platforms, because some of us may eventually just want to buy these goods from the digital marketing platforms rather than going to the shops, if that is possible. So let's come back to the jobs. That's the most one of the most important, right? For any person who wants to enter the digital marketing field, the most important question is, how can I make money out of it? Where can I find a job? What are the skill sets I require to, let's say, get hired by Ethnos Digital?
Yeah, absolutely. So, two, three things. I think, one, I don't think anybody today is skeptical about digital marketing. So I think by and large, the audiences are totally bought into digital marketing. So that's a given. I think it's more a question of, some people have already dived in, some people are about to dive in, and have started those processes. I gave you the example of lots of traditional companies in cement, steel, pumps, people with large retail presence, etc., who didn't have an e-com presence, are all now very clear that they need to have this. They need to have that ability to reach out to the customer directly without them necessarily being dependent on a physical location. So I think that's from a jobs perspective as well. If you think about it, I mean, anybody who is interested in marketing, sales, overall leadership in a company is need to be aware of how digital functions. So I think from a long-term career perspective, people who are joining the digital space for the next 5 to 10 years don't need to worry about, digital, will I get a job, what kind of career, etc. You can get, all sorts of jobs, right? From working at large brands to startups to all of the others, or you can look at working at agencies, or you can increasingly, one of the fastest growing spaces is the MarTech space, where a large amount of companies with tools which are marketing technology tools which allow you to maybe make stuff more efficient, faster, measure, do better data display, do marketing automation. So there are a huge amount of tool companies. Then there are obviously the platform and publishing companies like your Googles, Facebooks, others of the world, and other new players like a TikTok, etc. So I think from a jobs perspective, I think there is clearly enough and more jobs. But like with everything else, it's digital marketing is going to become like with anything else, that people with higher degrees of skill, people who are able to demonstrate that these are the specific types of skills that they bring to the table, are the ones who are going to get jobs. And when you ask me, what are the types of things that an Ethnos would look at while hiring? I think one of the biggest things that we would look at while hiring is actually people's attitudes. Yeah, the skills are something which are, I think, eminently teachable. I think, you can tell somebody, go in for this certification, do this course, do those types. So that's definitely doable. But I think more than anything else, people who are joining digital need to be aware that they're jumping into a field where there is going to be a huge amount of change. Just one of those things where there will constantly be change happening. There will constantly, every week, be new stuff happening. So you need to be able to internalize some of this new stuff. You need to be able to constantly juggle your job along with constantly learning new skills. So that's something. So I think one of the biggest things that we would hire for is attitude. That attitude of willing to learn, can do, curious, analytical. So it's those types of things, those types of intrinsic traits which are going to make people more successful. Because then they can take the skills that you impart and figure out how to use them and bring them to bear for their clients.
Yeah. In fact, that's a very interesting point that you put across, that even as a digital marketing trainer since a long time, every day I have to keep researching at least 1 or 2 hours on what's happening, what are the news tools that are coming out. In fact, some of my students also come across me, sir, do you know about this tool? I say, oh, I don't know about this. Let me go and try and research it and come back to you. So I tell my students also, that things is changing so fast that maybe even might not be able to keep pace with it. So if you come up with something and say, I can, and this will happen to me, it'll happen to you in the future, you will say, okay, I don't know about this. Let's go back and research this, because there's so many tools coming out. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are average. Changes are happening on the Facebook platforms, on the Google platforms so fast. LinkedIn, you look at Instagram for that matter, there are things changing so fast on it that you have to be constantly in touch with it. But so basically, what I normally tell my students is that if you go out for an interview, let's say today a person has been selected to be interviewed by your company. So I would normally tell them is, first you need to find out more about the company, research the company online. You need to find out what clients they are already involved with. That will give you a fair idea of what kind of clients they have on board. And what are they actually doing with them in the digital. Look at the ads that they're putting out, look at the content they're putting out for those clients. Also, what I tell them is that go with a certain portfolio. Like today, if you are let's say you take an example of an FMCG company, pick up any company, you yourself sit and design, or let's say a Facebook ad for them, not actually run it live, but who would you target? Why would you target them? What are the interest categories you would target? Make a short list of that. Make a short presentation of that. Put it on a landing page. First thing a digital marketing person needs to know is how to create a landing page. The most basic part of it. So if you have a landing page, you go to the HR manager, for example, of Ethnos Digital, and say, this is my landing page, and I have this content on it. I have done this. It's something which it really makes the HR person think that, okay, yeah, see, this person has researched me, my company, this person has actually researched my clients, this person has actually created I made an effort of creating a landing page, putting all those content on that, easy for me to read, easy for me to show it to, everything is digital nowadays, easy for me to take it probably to a person like you, because you might be making the final decision of who you want to hire and all that. I can forward this just simple URL to my head and ask him or her for approval of hiring the person. That's what normally I advise to my students to do that when they go for interviews.
Advice. I think that's good advice. I think just not enough people do the basic research, read up about the company, read up about the jobs, and just turn up. So I think just getting their basics in place would be a great first step.
Yes, exactly. That goes without saying. Basics, obviously, but exactly, so when you start creating, let's say when you create a Facebook ad, because if I want to target this for this company, I would target these people. That itself would prove to the HR person also that this person knows the platform very well. This
Yeah.
person knows what is happening. So basically, so as I said, if a person wants to come to you, what would you give to anybody, any digital marketing person starting off? I mean, let's say if you give 5 tips to them, what would be that?
It would actually be, I mean, constantly keep learning, be curious, try and make sure you're enjoying that part of digital which you're involved in, because digital is a fairly wide field now. So enjoy what you're doing, try and, be in that mode where you're meeting a lot of people, hearing from a lot of people, because like you said, somebody asking you about the tool made you go up and read that tool. So meeting a lot of people, doing a lot of reading, and I think that's pretty much it.
Great. So, final thoughts on the whole digital marketing industry.
Right.
Final thoughts on it.
Yeah, last couple of points. I think 2-3 things. I think digital is a great career for somebody in India. I'm very, very bullish on it. I think there's huge growth happening, both in terms of for skilled people in digital. There is huge demand. It's one of the areas where you continue to see, even during the lockdown, hiring happening. Keep in mind a few small things like digital isn't just about stuff happening in English. There is a lot of regional language stuff happening. That's probably where a lot of the growth is happening. It's no longer just those metro type things that would typically be Acha, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore type thing. Most markets, we've moved to the largest part of the growth is happening in non-metro. How we consume information. I mean, there was this whole thing about, for example, millennials who are basically digital natives and that type of thing. But I think it's moving beyond that. So I think how people consume content, how they like to be marketed to is changing very drastically. The same person on a platform does not like being marketed to, but on a certain different platform is very open to it. So, a lot of people, for example, 65% of the people say on Insta that they are looking for and seeking inspiration, looking for new brands. But the same guy, if you send him a message on WhatsApp, will be very irritated that what the hell are you spamming me for?
Exactly.
Being aware of the different options, being aware of what are the things that work, don't work, trying to understand your customer better. Those are things that are going to continue to happen. There are also going to be constantly new things, like for example, voice search has grown close to 250% in the last 1 year. So there are things like that which you will constantly need to kind of keep catering for. Also, in terms of in search, the specific type of things people search for, it's all about convenience now. It's about stuff near me, close to me, best, biggest, so those types of things. So I think people
free home delivery,
so free home delivery, fastest home delivery, deliveries near me, pick up near me, best restaurants in XYZ location, etc. So those types of things. And I think if people kind of people who are in this field continue to kind of keep exploring the field, I mean, I think the sky's the limit.
Exactly. In fact, a very good point you made was regional consumption of content, which, as per statistics, is like 4 to 5 times more than the English language, English consumption on the internet. And sales of smartphones actually, I mean, if you talk about the per capita, whatever you call that, the right term, I don't know, I think it's per capita. It's more than what it is in metro cities, in like smaller towns and villages of India. So huge growth potential there, and yes, a huge growth potential in the digital marketing industry. So so thanks a lot for coming online and speaking to me, and best of luck in all your future endeavors. And finally, I think after lockdown, let's have a meeting, which we were planning for a long time to happen. Right. I think your voice is gone for some reason.
I was just saying, looking forward to it, and thank you for having me today. I enjoyed this.
Thanks very much, and see you later. Bye.